The voice of Sherry. Durian ASEAN.
Good morning, everyone. You're with me, Gowri, today at Durian ASEAN. Arlene won't be joining us today because she has an emergency to attend to. So let's start with the news. The first news that we have today is from New Straits Times, reported on the 24th of April. Obama look-alike takes in stride. In Subang Jaya, apparently, Iman Ishak, 25 years old, is a lawyer who turns heads. His presence is distinct and noticeable. Around him, people linger and whisper until one day when a man stood before him and said, "Barack Obama." Iman is a dead ringer for the US president. And I guess being an Obama lookalike has resulted in a lot of amusing experiences for Iman. And one of them was when he was at Madame Tussauds, the London's famous celebrity waxwork attraction last year. When he was posing next to Obama's waxwork figure in Madame Tussauds' recreation of the Oval Office, complete with the resolute desk used by the president since 1880, he was surrounded by people, and all of them started taking pictures of him instead of pictures of themselves. So Iman said that his lecturer looked at the photo and said, "Hey, you look like Barack Obama," but he didn't see it back then until a lot of people started noticing him on the street. And the icing on the cake was when his parents himself started calling him Barack Obama. Iman said he has since grown to get used to the stares and stage whispers from strangers. I guess it both has its plus and minus, and it cannot be a bad thing to look like the President of the United States, who's actually here in Malaysia today for a visit. And he will be in University Malaya today, and he'll be here until the 27th of April. So if any one of you out there want to catch him, you know where to go today. The next news is from CNN. Family's next step, demanding answers from Boeing on MH370. So we'll be focusing on the flight, the latest update from CNN. Families of Flight 370 passengers are taking a new step in their desperate search for information on what happened to their loved ones, turning to a US company. While pushing Malaysian authorities for answer, we're also extending our reach now. Boeing is a publicly traded company in the United States, and that puts them in a position of a little bit more fiduciary responsibility, she said on New Day. The missing flight was a Boeing 777. The company had no immediate comment when contacted early Thursday by CNN. In a statement earlier this month, though, Boeing said, "Our thoughts and deepest sympathies continue to be with the families and loved ones of those on board Malaysia Airlines Flight 370. Under the international protocols established for aviation accident investigations, Boeing continues to serve as a technical advisor to the U.S. National Transportation Safety Board in support of the Malaysian authorities." So Malaysia has insisted that it has nothing to hide and is working hard to look for answers to provide to the family. But the government officials said that they have not yet decided whether or not they will make the report to the public. The ICAO told CNN about a safety recommendation in the report. Malaysia said that the aviation world needs to look at real-time tracking of commercial aircraft. And it's actually the same recommendation that was made after the Air France accident in 2009. But nothing seems to have happened. Well, I don't know who is to be blamed here, whether it's the Malaysian government or Boeing itself, because if it's the plane's fault, then we can blame Boeing and I guess push them for some explanation. But if it is a conspiracy, if the plane was hijacked and turned back, then I guess Boeing is not to be held responsible here. And no one really, because no one expected this tragedy to happen. So the next news will be Kim cancels his press conference in Singapore on the 27th of April. This is reported by the New Straits Times yesterday. It seems that out of respect for the sunken Sewol ferry disaster, this South Korean actor has cancelled his press conference that was to be held before his fan meeting here on Sunday, April 27. However, the Singapore fan meet as part of the 2014 Kim Soo-hyun Asian Tour First Memories will go on as per schedule. The 26-year-old Kim, who achieved megastar fame after starring as the alien heartthrob in the hit mega drama My Love from the Star, was reportedly understated and somber at promotional activities in Hong Kong and Vietnam. So I think it's only wise for Kim Soo-hyun to cancel his press conference. After such a tragedy, we have experienced it ourselves in Malaysia. A few days after MH370, the whole country was sad. The whole country was depressed, and it's hard to even go out and have fun. So I totally understand why Kim Soo-hyun would cancel his press conference before his fan meeting. And I just want to extend my deepest condolences to South Korea, and I hope they get things together soon. So mourners flocked to the funeral of Myanmar pro-democracy hero. So I think this was reported yesterday as well, so it's just a little follow-up by the New Straits Times. It seems that hundreds of mourners gathered on Wednesday to mark the funeral of Win Tin, a former journalist and giant of Myanmar pro-democracy movement, in an outpouring of grief for one of the country's best-loved champions of freedom. The co-founder of Myanmar's opposition party, along with Aung San Suu Kyi, Win Tin continued to wear a blue shirt after his release in 2008. He died in hospital in Yangon early Monday at the age of 84, so they confirmed his age is 84, after suffering a range of health problems. Rights campaigners, politicians, many in the international community, everyone came down to pay tribute to this courageous man who, for nearly 2 decades, was brutally treated and jailed by the former military regime. Human Rights Watch Executive Director Kenneth Roth said he was an irreplaceable loss for Burma's human rights community in a statement using the country's former name. His bravery in the face of cruel hardship continues to echo through Burma's fragile reform process. So this once again reminds us of an incident very similar to what happened in Penang early this week when Karpal Singh actually passed away. He left a huge mark as well. He inspired everyone with his courage. He was, I guess, brutally treated, not physically, but all the insults thrown at him along the way, the accident that he had. But nothing deterred his spirit from fighting for the people's rights, fighting for the rakyat. And he was brave in the face of all hardship, and his spirit never waned, not one bit. So it's the loss of 2 very brave leaders, which is really sad. And let's hope that the fight continues towards democracy and towards the freedom that we're looking for. So the next news will be Brunei returns to the stoning age by the Daily Beast. So this is more of an opinion news. To this outrageous return to medieval modes of justice, the response in this country has been, this country as in the United States, the cancellation of a conference at the Beverly Hills. It seems that the famed Los Angeles landmark is owned by the Sultan of Brunei himself. Coincidentally, the Outgiving Conference, the latest single event for the LGBT donors worldwide, was scheduled to take place there from May 1 to 4. But after the Washington Blade notified one of the conference organizers that the Sultan is actually not very LGBT friendly, although that's the conference that's taking place in his hotel, the conference was relocated immediately. So geopolitically, the move is likely yet another step for the relatively conservative Brunei to define itself against its more liberal neighbors like Indonesia and Malaysia. The Sultan of Brunei will not have a quasi-Islamist rebellion within the abode of peace. He will stay ahead of the conservative curve. So what will be the effects of this change really? Oh, I think it's too soon to say. It could be a ceremonial thing in nature. Brunei has had the death penalty for decades, yet its last execution took place in 1957 under the British rule. So since then, no one has been executed. Maybe the penalties called for by the Sharia will be similar, although the Saudi Arabia trip suggests otherwise. So a little background to this story. On Tuesday, April 22nd, the Sultanate of Brunei was to put into effect a new penal code that provides stoning to death, as you all already know, as the penalty for rape, adultery, sodomy, extramarital sexual relations for Muslims, any defamation of the Prophet Muhammad, of Islam, of verses of the Quran, Hadith, blasphemy, or declaring oneself as a prophet or non-Muslim, and also, of course, robbery and murder. But we also know that they have actually delayed this penal code. They haven't actually executed it, so we'll have to see how that one goes. The next one is a news from Thailand reported by FT.com. So both sides in Thailand's, the headline first, opposition leader warns Thailand could erupt in violence. Both sides in Thailand's political crisis must back down from a showdown in May that many fear will turn into a violent and deep damage on the country's economy, reputation, and the main opposition party has urged. Abhisit Vejajiva, the head of the Democrats and former Prime Minister, has called for talks and the start of political reforms ahead of elections within months, warning that the Arab Spring had shown that the dangerous potential for countries to suddenly erupt in violence. His comments came amid growing fears among business people and others of the impact of a crisis that has paralyzed the government of Yingluck Shinawatra, Prime Minister, for almost 5 months and is undermining Thailand's ambitions to take a central role in Southeast Asia's economic integration. People see the country moving ahead next month into what could be even more confrontation, more threat of violence, Mr. Abhisit said in an interview. Given the accumulated frustration and suffering and loss of opportunity for the country, I think it's really time for people to begin speak up for the middle ground. It's not very difficult to actually, I think, break into violence or inflict a deep damage on the country. It takes very little for a revolution to actually happen, as the Arab Spring has shown us. You just need some minor incidents, because all this this tension is already building up, and just some minor incident to ignite that spark and gather the momentum, and people are already in mood for a revolution, for a reform, which could get pretty violent. So who knows what that will lead to. The next one is another opinion news. It's by the National Catholic Reporter. So they accuse Vietnam of being the most pro-American Asian nation. So why is that? Vietnam, you ask. 2 million Vietnamese perished in the conflict with Americans. So why would you say that Vietnam is the most pro-American country? Isn't that where 58,000 U.S. soldiers died? Didn't the U.S. Air Force General Curtis LeMay, referring to Vietnam, say we should bomb them back to Stone Age by taking out their factories, harbors, bridges, until we have destroyed every work of man in North Vietnam? So most Americans stopped thinking much about the Vietnam when the last Americans left Vietnam in 1975. And that's when the war officially ended and the communists took over the south. So 40 years later, some updates. The Vietnamese won the war. Vietnam is a relatively small country bordering China, which is actually its historical enemy. They fought the Chinese troops on the Vietnam-China border, and even with China claiming the Vietnamese islands on the South China Sea, bitterness between China and Vietnam grew day by day, and many of the Vietnamese boycott Chinese goods. And top communist government leaders know where higher education is strong, where children can be exposed to the latest thinking, new technologies, new business models, and they send their children to the US, not China, not Russia, for the education. And today is only a small fraction of the Vietnamese population has a living memory of the war. In 1960s, North and South Vietnam each had a population of just over 15 million. Today, Vietnam is 3 times larger with a population of 90 million. It's a very young nation given that they have to be at least maybe 55 years old to have a reasonable memory of the war. That segment of the population is relatively small though. Western influence is also everywhere in Vietnam. If you take a look at the young urban dwellers, sons, daughters of the elite, packed into all the coffee shops and ice cream parlors, carrying their iPhones, wearing jeans, wearing English lettered T-shirts, and that clearly shows the effect of America on Vietnam. And English is also Vietnam's second language. It is currently being taught in elementary schools and up, and the Vietnamese actually enjoy practicing their English with Americans. So I keep thinking, if only we could have lost the war sooner, how many lives might have been saved? But Vietnam also has its problems today, and but at least they're capable of making their own decisions now. So the final news for today is by FT.com. Singapore exchange losing out to regional competitors. So Singapore's equity market is looking increasingly unloved. Last year, Cityscape Stock Exchange suffered the indignity of being overtaken in terms of trading volume by its Thai counterpart, knocking Singapore into second place in Southeast Asia for the first time. More recently, it was also overhauled by Japan, a relatively small trading platform that competes with Tokyo Bourse. Singapore's problems, a combination of low trading volume or liquidity, as you can call it, relatively high transaction cost, and a dearth of big-ticket initial public offerings were highlighted on Wednesday when the SGX reported a 22% fall in the net profit for the third quarter. It blamed a challenging quarter for our securities business. Average daily value of shares traded in the third quarter fell 37% year on year to 1 billion Singapore dollars. Singapore is, I think, largely counting on international listings, and they are competing with the likes of Hong Kong, which is way, way bigger. They are in a tough market, but I think Singapore will manage to pull it through because they have a very strong currency going on there. They have a lot of investors, a lot of expats settling down there. So I think they'll manage to work things out. Okay, so I think that's all the news we have for today. We'll be back shortly. So thank you for listening. Bye.